This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to create your very own beautiful website. Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing really well. I have been meaning to plan a sit-down video for a while now to do a wrap-up video talking about all of the books that I read in a given month, but I have not gotten the chance to do one yet for a variety of reasons, so I thought my April wrap-up would be the perfect beginning to the start of hopefully many wrap-ups to come, because very surprisingly, I read 10 books in the month of April, which is very rare for me. I had Libro FM credits to use up, Spotify hours to use up, and I've been using Libby a ton as well, and I've got arcs to review, so April has been a really busy reading month. Oh, and also I had a 10-day holiday in April because of the Easter break and Anzac Day in Australia, so I took the extra time off and got the chance to read a ton of books. So yeah, I have 10 books to talk about today, but before I get into them, I just want to thank the lovely sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Whether you're starting fresh or growing your brand, you can create a beautiful website, sell products, offer services, and engage your audience all in one place on your terms. My official blog domain, cupsandthoughts.org, was done using Squarespace domain. They make it really easy to find the right one, and everything's included with no hidden fees or complicated add-ons. They have a streamlined way to simply allow you to claim your space on the internet. They also have the most beautiful website design templates. You don't have to be a designer to make a website that feels totally you. You can start with some of their gorgeous templates. If you're ready to create your own website, visit squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/cupsandthoughts to save 10% off on your first purchase of a website or domain. So I'll go through the books in order of date read. The first book that I read in April was Sky in the Deep by Adrienne Young. This is about a girl who, while fighting against her rival clan, sees her brother fighting with said rival clan, the same brother who she saw falling to his death 5 years ago. She eventually gets taken to the Riki clan, which is the enemy clan, and there she tries to deal with seeing her brother being alive all this time and how he has quote-unquote betrayed his own clan to be with the Riki. Our main protagonist is fiercely loyal and strong, and we see her navigating through her own conflict as she learns to trust her enemy clan while making sure that her own clan does not get harmed along the way. This one surprised me in a really good way. I know this is a debut novel written by one of my all-time favorite authors ever, Adrienne Young. So I was coming in thinking it won't be as fleshed out or mature like some of her newer books, The Unmaking of June Farrow or Fable for example, but I was so wrong and I am so glad. Yes, this is a YA novel and it's not flashy in any way, but it reads so maturely and is still a very engaging story. The characters have dimension to them, the story is rich, and the themes are very emotional. One thing I know Adrienne Young can never fail in is the way that she writes romance. She doesn't make it obvious when the female main character is attracted to the male main character. She does not have to describe how physically attractive he is or how he makes her feel emotionally. Everything is sort of shown to you rather than told. Little subtle hints are sprinkled along the way that makes you feel the gravitational pull between the female main character and the male main character. That is what I love about the romance in her books. I felt this in The Unmaking of June Farrow, the first book I've ever read by Adrienne Young, and then again in Fable and all of the other books in the series, which in my opinion was done the best, and then in Spells for Forgetting, A Sea of Unspoken Things, and now with Sky in the Deep. I can go on and on with how amazing of a writer she is, but yes, this was a really great read and I gave it a solid 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, we have the Little Thieves Trilogy by Margaret Owen. I picked up the audiobook of this on a whim because I had Spotify hours to kill. If you guys didn't know, the premium subscription that's like $13.99 Australian dollars a month grants you 15 free audiobook hours, and I try to use these hours by listening to books that are just under 15 hours or a little bit under that, so I am not left on a cliffhanger. Unfortunately, Spotify hours do not get carried over the next month, so if you don't use them, you lose them. Anyway, I have been meaning to pick up Little Thieves for a while because it sounds like something that I will be really interested in. It's a retelling of Goose Girl, which honestly does not sound like much to me considering I am not familiar with the fairy tale. But it involves a girl who gets cursed for her greed, and basically the curse involves jewels and gems growing out of her body and will completely cover her with jewels if she does not repent. I thought this was a very unhinged but clever curse idea because obviously it's a reflection of her greed. You get what you take type of idea, and when people see these jewels growing out of her, they will try to get her to carve these precious gems out of her and sell them for a profit. and then not actually caring if Vanya, the main character, gets hurt in the process. The audiobook was such an adventure. The narrator did a fantastic job bringing the story to life, and it's so original and clever. But the best thing about the story is definitely the characters. They're all pretty young, and Vanya, the main character, is so cheeky and funny and smart. She's morally grey, obviously. She's a bad girl, and all she does is steals from people who she thinks do not deserve the wealth that they have. I love that she's a little awkward as well and so determined. She is one of the most lovable characters out there. And then there is Emmerich, who is the complete opposite of Vanya. He is a prefect, so he is obedient and never breaks the rules, and they complement one another so well. I had such a fun time seeing them squabble with each other. Vanya and Emmerich are the epitome of a cat and mouse chase. The push and pull between them is insane. The other books in the series have very similar vibes. There's a slight mystery element, lots of banter, and amazing character development. It's lighthearted, but at the same time can be very heartbreaking. The ending of book 2 made me jump straight to book 3, and nothing has ever felt so right. I just needed to know what happened next. Such an underrated trilogy. Emmerich and Vanya are so lovable and awkward. Even the other characters in the series is lovable, like Ragni. She is my favorite as well. Funnily enough, I gave each of these books 4 out of 5 stars, but some part of me is still so obsessed with this trilogy. I think it's the characters. The story itself is good, not my favorite, but the characters are what stand out the most to me personally. I couldn't stop thinking of the characters, so much so that I splurged on these gorgeous Illuminate editions. I was very lucky to find a seller who was looking to let them go, at least the first 2 books, at cost price, and I managed to snag the 3rd book straight from the Illuminate store. So yes, very happy with that. Love this trilogy. 10 out of 10, highly recommend. Okay, next up we have The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillick. I read One Dark Window by her with my book club last year, and I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan. It was good, but it wasn't anything special. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. I listened to the book as an audiobook and loved the atmospheric vibes, loved the gothic vibes, but the story felt a little bit flat to me, and I decided against reading the sequel because the story just didn't stick with me. However, The Night and the Moth sounded like something I would really enjoy. Knights, diviners, and a gothic atmosphere? Big yes. I was very lucky to receive a beautiful package from the publisher and got to read this early, and I really enjoyed this one. The first 100 pages or so were a little hard to get into though, not going to lie. Rachel Gillick has such a unique writing style that it took me a while to adapt to the story. But once I got acclimated, I seriously could not put this down. We follow a diviner called Sybil, and for as long as she can remember, she serves in the Great Cathedral and has these dreams where she can predict bad things before they occur. So people from all over the kingdom comes to request for their visions to be read through her dreams, and then one day a heretical knight comes to the cathedral and pretty much rejects all that Sybil does and believes in. He thinks diviners are a big fluke and aren't all that, even though they are highly looked up to and respected all across the kingdom. And while he is insufferable and very rude to her, Sybil's fellow diviners start to vanish one by one, and she has no choice but to ask for this heretical knight's help to find them. This sounds like nothing I have ever read before, and it's exactly that. The magic system involves omens, and it's so unique. I enjoyed the romance in this one too, not too over the top, and lots of yearning, which I love. I don't really like spice in my books, so yearning is the only way to my heart. There is only one spice scene in this book, and that fits the bill for me. My favorite thing about this book is the bat gargoyle. If you've read this book, you'll know what I mean. He is just the best, and I had the best time reading this book, mostly because of him. Rory, who is the heretical knight that I mentioned earlier, he is obviously also another reason why I love this book. He is so charming and clever and so endearing when he can be. I'm a huge fan of this book, and I cannot wait to read the next books, I think, hopefully, in this series. 4 out of 5 stars. I love this one a lot. Okay, next up we have Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. This is my very first Emily Henry book, and I was so excited when Penguin surprised me with a gorgeous PR package for this. So thank you again, Penguin. This book follows Alice and Hayden, 2 rival journalists trying to win a journal piece with the one and only Margaret Ives. The Ives family is well known for their generational wealth and scandals, and for the longest time, all that's out there are rumors about how their wealth started and how they rose to their fame. So this is Alice's opportunity to tell the real story through the eyes of an actual Ives. So of course, Alice is determined to not let Hayden win this piece. If you have read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, this one might pique your interest. It's similar to Evelyn Hugo in that Great Big Beautiful Life jumps back and forth from the present through Alice's POV to the past through the Ives POV. We follow their family structure in sequence, just like with Evelyn Hugo and her 7 husbands, and as we reach closer to the end, unexpected secrets start to unravel. I enjoyed this parallel sequence in fiction novels, and I think it's so interesting that we get to follow along with Alice as we learn about Margaret's family. There's a mystery element that's refreshing to see in a romance novel, and the only other novels I've seen do this are 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, obviously, and maybe Malibu Rising as well, by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Except with Malibu Rising, you know what happens in the end, you just don't know how it unfolds. Anyway, I liked it and was enjoying the parallel storytelling, but really hate to admit that I eventually got bored of Margaret's story. I think it was because in comparison, Alice and Hayden, they were both moving so fast in their relationship, or I guess in their rival relationship turned romance. So their romance felt very underdeveloped, that they were already falling for each other not even a few weeks into their relationship. They were also going to similar places for their dates, and I felt like there was a lack of connection this way. Things were moving so fast for them for no significant reason, and I just wasn't convinced, unfortunately. I feel like while Margaret's story was beautifully done and so interesting to read about, it overshadowed Alice and Hayden's relationship that it made me want to jump back to Alice's POV just so I can see more fleshing out of Alice's and Hayden's relationship. I don't even know what the solution for this kind of storytelling is. Make the book longer? Condense Margaret's story? I'm not sure. Either way, the romance fell a little flat for me. But I did really enjoy Emily Henry's writing. One thing for sure is that Emily Henry can definitely write, like really write. Some of the quotes in here are so memorable and relatable. The way she effortlessly verbalizes emotions that are hard to put into words is admirable. My favorite part of this book is the development in Alice's relationship with her mom. 10 out of 10, so accurate and so painfully relatable. It definitely made me tear up, which got me bumping this book's rating up to 3.5 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed this one as well. Next up, we have Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukegawa. This book was so tender. We follow a dorayaki seller who has a dark criminal associated past, and he reluctantly hires this old lady who he knows nothing about, but she keeps insisting that she makes really good sweet bean paste and offers to help him make them for close to nothing labor wage, and together they form the most wholesome and unlikely relationship with each other. This book is so short but definitely packs a punch. It delves into a pretty specific history of Japan that I can't believe I've never really taken much thought of, and it weaves together what the meaning of life is, what it means to have friends and family by your side, and believing in yourself and your craft. It's such a beautifully soft and sweet story that will have you annotating these pages. I bought this book secondhand, and while I was reading, I discovered the previous owner's annotations, which I thought was so lovely. Their annotations resonated so much with me and were definitely something I would totally annotate myself as well. I thought this added to the experience of the story so much more and made me enjoy the book a lot more as well. While in its beautiful softness, it's also raw and unflinching, giving us a glimpse of some of the darker parts of Japanese lifestyle and history. Overall, a very touching, tender, and wholesome story. 4 out of 5 stars for me. The only gripe I have with this is that I didn't feel enough satisfaction upon finishing this book, and I kind of wish it was longer. I think the shortness of this book is definitely its charm, but it's just a personal opinion of mine that I wanted to read a lot more about these characters. It's a book that I don't actually own a physical copy of, and it's because I listened to it on an audiobook, and that is Migrations by Charlotte McConaughey. I have here Wild Dark Shore by the same author, so I'll just make it as a replacement holder for Migrations. I'll just be frank and disclose this early. I did not enjoy Migrations, which is such a shame considering that Wild Dark Shore is one of my all-time favorite reads of this year and possibly of all time now. And her other book, Once There Were Wolves, got 4 out of 5 stars from me. Migrations follow Franny as she sets off on a boat to follow the last ever Arctic terns in their migration from Greenland to Antarctica. And on that boat, she meets new people, grows as a character, but her dark history starts to unravel and impacts her as she goes along on her journey. I could not for the life of me connect with Franny. She's meant to be this wild, free-spirited, and reckless woman, and it even says in the blurb that she has always been the kind of woman who is able to love but unable to stay. So I get that her reckless tendencies are, I guess, deliberate by the author, but I was just so confused for the most part. I think there was just a lot of showing and not a lot of telling, which made me question Franny's decisions, and we don't know a lot about Franny to start with, and so we're just trying to find out more about her life and her upbringing as we kind of go. But I just couldn't relate to her this way, and I find myself not being able to root for her in any sort of way. It's also meant to be an emotional book, as with the other two Charlotte McConaughey books I've read, especially with relation to animal/environmental themes. But a lot of it felt like blatant shock factor. We see Franny getting, emotionally distressed over these animals, which I can see is a way to evoke some form of empathy from the readers, but they were just so out of place that it just flew over my head. It was a very short book, so the story flew by really quickly for me, and unfortunately, so did any care I've had left of this book. By the time we got to the end, nothing even really mattered to me anymore. It all felt very anticlimactic, and I was so relieved to be done. No one is sadder than I am that I did not enjoy this book, but it's got amazing reviews on Goodreads, so I'm really happy it worked out for most people, just not for me unfortunately. 1.5 out of 5 stars. Alright, now we have The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. This one was very kindly sent to me by the publisher Hachette, so thank you Hachette for the opportunity to read this early. This book takes place in the Empire of Oron. The reign of the current ruler is about to end, and so 7 contenders compete to replace him, and these are some of the best contenders from each Animal Guardian house. And then all of a sudden, one of them is murdered. Our main character is Nima Kra. She is a Raven Scholar, and with the murder of one of the contenders, she is forced to unravel who the real killer is, and in the process discover dark secrets. This book is, in a word, ambiguous and maybe a little bit unhinged. We have talking ravens, dialogues that feel a little bit out of place, unserious characters, things that you don't normally see in an epic fantasy novel, but weirdly it works really well and makes for a really fun, unique yet dark story. It took me a while to get into this book. It's pretty dense and the world building is much needed to enjoy the story fully, so I really did not mind this. I was hooked after 50 pages or so. Mind you, this is a pretty big book, about 600 plus pages, but I enjoyed every single moment of it. The characters were amazing, so funny and fleshed out, and I enjoyed reading about all of them respectively. But of course, like everyone else, my favorite is Kane, and maybe Ruko honestly. I eventually switched out to the audiobook after reading about a third of the book, and that was one of the best decisions I've ever made because the audiobook is amazing. Daphne Kurma is such a talented narrator. Her accents were stellar, the sound effects immersive, and the wit in her tone really brings out the unseriousness of the book without it sounding off. It's hard to explain, but give it a go, give it a listen. It's such a unique book overall. Seriously, like nothing I have ever read before. This book is getting a lot of hype, and for really good reason. I cannot wait to read the next books in the series. 4 out of 5 stars. Alright, the last book that I read is Silver Elite by Danny Francis. This is also an ARG kindly sent to me by Penguin, so thank you to Naya for the chance to read this early. This is a dystopian romance novel following a girl who has incredible psychic powers, but in the society that she lives in, they are seen as something dangerous, so she's forced to hide them all of her life pretty much. And then she gets put into the silver block out of her own will, and then there she meets the captain of the program who obviously strikes her fancy. You already know where the story is gonna go from here. This book is so reminiscent of Divergent. Pair that with the addicting elements of Fourth Wing, you get Silver Elite pretty much. I wrote a 900-word review of this book on Goodreads if you want to have a read, but I thought this was a very solid first book to a I want to say trilogy. Our female main character is reckless, beautiful, strong, and has all of these psychic powers that will have her dead without a single trial. Then we have our male main character who she absolutely cannot fall in love with because he is part of the reason people like her cannot be a part of society pretty much. The first 200 to 300 pages of the book were pretty much of them both pining over one another. We see their obvious attraction towards one another, which yes, admittedly makes the book very addicting to read, but also made me roll my eyes and cringe so bad. I'm not the biggest fan of blatant romances written this way, where we get constantly told how attractive or how attracted the male main character and the female main characters are, but I also hate to admit that it's hard to look away no matter how eye-roll worthy the story is going. The stereotypical themes of the story almost made me rate the book 2 stars, but the more I read, the more I grew to enjoy it. I know a lot of people much preferred the first half of the book rather than the second one, where there was less spice and more vulnerability and action, and I totally get it, but I personally preferred the second half over the first. After all, it's what made me bump this book up into 4 stars. The physical attraction between the two got a bit too much, much and annoying to me, so I was very glad to see some actual tender and sweet moments eventually. It was a nice break from having to see them want to maul each other every single time they see each other. The world building is accessible and nostalgic, again with the Divergent vibes, and the writing is super easy to follow. I finished this book in exactly 6 hours, which is very fast considering this arc is like 500 plus pages long. It was very fast paced and addictive. People are saying that this is the next book to blow up on TikTok, and I can 100% see that. Highly recommend this if you want something quick, easy, and super addicting with nostalgic OG dystopian vibes. Alright, so those are all of the books that I have to share with you guys. Let me know if you enjoyed this kind of video, and I can definitely do more in the future. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye! Thank you once again to the wonderful sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. If you're looking to build your own website, you can head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, you can go to squarespace.com/cupsandthoughts to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.